Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Debbie, and as you're about to find out, I'm a mixed media artist, and this is July 2025 and it's the roundup. It's actually August when you're seeing this, but this is the July roundup. So basically everything that I have created in my sketchbooks during the month of July. Usually there'd be one or two things that I've done off the page as well, like prints and little zines and bits and pieces like that, but I don't think I've done anything like that this month. I certainly can't find it if I have, and goodness knows it can't have got far since July has only just finished. Before we get into all of this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and leave a comment if you have time. I try to get back to absolutely all of them. Sometimes it takes a little while, but I get there in the end. The perils of being a one-person sort of operation, sadly. And if you like what you see here today, do please consider joining my Patreon. Not only is it the best way possible for me to be able to create more and more content, but I love my community over there. It's a really nice place to hang out. So I would love to see you there as well. And I will point out as we go along which of these images are Patreon tutorials, just so you can get some sort of an idea of what is on offer. Right, now these are in no particular order. Sometimes I have all these sketchbooks on the go at once, and you might ask why. Trust me, I've asked why too sometimes, but the reason for that is they're all different formats. Some of them are for my YouTube videos, or if I just want to do something quite small, but some of them are landscape, some of them are portrait, some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. All different, and it depends on what I want to put in, and it depends what paper I want to work on. These are all Hahnemühle Nostalgia. They aren't particularly designed for wet media. I've had a few people comment on how I got on with wet media on these. They're not actually designed for wet media. However, they are such good quality that you can just ignore that and do it anyway. And I do it anyway. I layer a lot of layers, and about 3 of those layers can be wet, sometimes 4, because with mixed media we do work with layers. So layer 1 is going to be usually the wet layer. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it's pan pastel, and it just depends. So as a rule, that's where most of your wet stuff goes, is on the first layer, so directly onto the paper, and the paper does take it. I'm not sponsored by Hahnemühle. I just love their product, and it's worth a shout when somebody's using the product and is actually enjoying it, working out what it can do and what it can't do. I mean, it does buckle a little bit when you put wet media on it sometimes, not all the time, sometimes. It depends. It depends whether you've just dabbed daintily with a watercolour brush and done something very ladylike in one corner, or completely hosed it down with ink. It makes a difference, obviously. Most of us will just, sort of put some areas down and it may buckle a bit, but I find that if I close the book when it's dry, close it, put something heavy on it, it's fine. I usually keep working and ignore it. I've ironed it. That helps. Works too. Another time it will buckle is when I use pan pastel. I fix it with hairspray because I don't want to have it all over my fingers and don't want to breathe it in. So I fix it with hairspray, and that will make it buckle too, because of course when the hairspray goes on, the fibres of the paper will contract slightly or expand depending on which side, and that will cause buckling as well. So the main take-home message before I open a sketchbook is sometimes it happens and the world keeps spinning. So I've decided that is not something, it's not the battle I want to go to. Let's try with this first one first. Where are we up to here? Page 1, 1st of July. These aren't in date order. Sometimes I'll paint on the nice side, which is this one here. And most people know it. And then I'll go back through the book because it's finished, and I'll say, well, what can I put in? Oh yeah, there's a space. I'll stick something in there. So I do it on this side afterwards. And sometimes I use both pages. Sometimes I use both pages properly, as in full. Sometimes I do this, where it just peters out onto one side. This is a tutorial that's on my Patreon, actually. And you'll see some more roses as we go through, because before I teach them, I put them through their paces properly, not just how I do them, but how else I could do them, in case there's something I've missed that I can pass on to my students. So this was all about wild roses or dog roses, and I like to put a little picture with it, because putting it into, I'm a landscape artist first and foremost. You could say nature artist first and foremost, actually, because I love landscapes. I do a lot of them, seascapes, landscapes, all sorts of things. But I also like to focus quite tightly in sometimes. You know how it is in autumn when we focus on mushrooms. Everything's about mushrooms. It's taken me to my time in life, which is, I was born last century, which sounds odd, but true nonetheless. And it's taken me this long to realise that you can focus on summer and spring and winter as well. There are things to look at, so that's what I've done with my students. And making a little background is quite nice. Now, this is all, like I said, this is what mixed media looks like the way I teach it. Other people may do mixed media differently. If you are of my vintage, you will have gone through a school system where mixed media wasn't something you talked about. You'd rather admit to something quite shameful than to wanting to do that. You were either a proper watercolourist, you were a proper oil painter, or you worked with pencils or whatever, but you didn't mix them up. That's no. Oh, no, we couldn't do that. That would mean a letter home, I think, and some sort of action taken at the doctors. So I'm loving the fact that when I go to an art shop, I don't stick with my aisle. I shop all over the place and spend the GDP of Malta on everything from watercolour pans to inks, coloured pencils, brushes, chalks, pastels, some funny smelly stuff that I'll work out when I get home. It doesn't matter. I can buy the lot, and the way I teach it, this is what we do. So this, for example, will have pan pastel as a sky. It's got watercolour as these wispy trees. Then we've come in with some gouache, more watercolour. These are almost all done with Neocolour too, but they're not dissolved out like you're supposed to. I have a different technique for that. And then in between here, there's some inks and coloured pencils and dip pen and everything. So if you've got a cupboard full of stuff that you've been saving, or if you've always wondered what else you can do, like I started with this when I was finally fed up with watercolour. It needed something, and I always wanted to add something more. I realised I could add ink and a pen and so forth like that. It's not enough. That's not finished. I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. It happens sometimes. I'll finish it because I've got this idea in my head, but I'm just not sure what it is. And as soon as I pull it out, I'll finish it, and I'll show you later on, even though it's not strictly in July anymore. So, yeah, this was a situation where I started something. I think I got distracted. Our house is on the market at the moment, full of distractions. Here again, pan pastel, watercolour, gouache, coloured pencils, ink, the works. And just a picture of a church in a country scene. Nothing in particular. Doesn't mean anything politically. It's just a pretty picture. This is Beryl the Peril. And I think this was the tutorial I did for my patrons. There's a tutorial on Beryl, and we've done some squirrel recipes, so you'll see that in a minute. I'll get back to that. But this is one of the tutorials. I'm pretty sure it's this one. If not, then it's the other one. I've got a couple. Beryl the Peril is our resident squirrel in the garden, and I thought she would make a fine portrait for our animal for July. I think it was July. Yes, pretty sure it was July. So much going on. Again, the same things. And, you know, neo art and other pastels, a bit of oil pastel, acrylic markers. Love my acrylic markers. And all this lovely smudgy stuff. This is what mixed media can look like. Another one of Beryl. And doing some watercolour over the top of wax pastels, because, of course, you're not supposed to be able to. But there you go. Get some really nice effects when you try. And it's coming up to owl painting season. I'm sorry, my dog's about to start barking. I have a Cocker Spaniel, and when the balks start, they sort of spill out. You can't stop them, apparently. She certainly can't. It's coming up to owl painting season, so getting ready with the night stuff and so forth. My barn owls always look worried. They look like they've got money worries or have had bad news from home or something. So yeah, it's what they look like, I suspect. Those eyes need a bit more deepening. Birds. I love painting birds. And one thing that I've been very much into at the moment, two different things that have happened this year to my art. One is I'm really liking doing these blurry backgrounds with pan pastels, and then coming back in with all the other more solid stuff, because I like the idea of this up close, in focus bird, and then the rest of that the world that the bird belongs to included as well. I don't like doing studies of things where you'll just do a study of something and it's a white page. I have got a few of those, they happen, but I prefer to put them into context and show where do they live, what does their world look like. I've absolutely no idea what these are. I think they were meant to start out as Queen Anne's lace or cow parsley or something like that. They've probably gone a bit wrong. It doesn't matter. It's a hedgerow. It's a context for the bird. And again, there's watercolour in there. There's a lot of Neo Art Pastel. There is a lot of Neocolour 2, a little bit of Neocolour 1, the whole lot, pastels, watercolours, gouache, coloured pencil. Same here. This is the second thing that I've been doing more this year, are bug's eye view and bird's eye view right in under the hedgerow so that you can see where these guys live. I've got a couple, hopefully I've got them in this pile here, if not I shall find them, of actually bug's eye view of a bird, what it might look like to look up and see a bird and to see right into the hedge. And here again, all of the usual culprits for mixed media and some brambles, because it's coming up to that time too, and I just love painting birds. Another one, again, full and plenty, and this became a tutorial. Actually, it's weird. Oh, yeah, I did put a snail. I was going to put a snail somewhere, and I realised I had. This took a couple of nights. This became a tutorial for my Patreons because I split it up. We've got lots of dandelion ones on there of different sort of life stages of the dandelion, because they're super useful to put into things like when you're painting a picture. And my Patreons who are seeing this video first will be sick to death of me saying this, but it's worth repeating, trust me. When you're painting a picture, you've got a focal point, and that would be our J. He's the focal point. But unless you're setting out to paint just a study, so a bird on a white background or a bird on a plain background, then you need to have context. And this is where this little guy lives. He managed to sort of alight in a messy area of the garden. But if you've got too many other stars of the show, it's too busy and you lose track of who is, who are we painting here? Who's the star of the show? You've got to have the star of the show plus supporting acts. And what I quite like for that is to have boring colours, bear with me, beige, grey, all these boring colours here, because they add texture, they add context, but they keep in the background where they belong. These are the Greek chorus. They're supposed to stay at the back. They're supposed to support what you're painting. And then you want things that wildflowers or weeds, depending on your perspective. I love dandelions, I love clover, and I love all these other bits that make up the world that we live in. But none of them are supposed to take over. So you could paint a rose in there. Trouble is, with art, it's very easy to go from artistic to kitsch. For example, you paint a bird on a rose. Birds they do that all the time. They alight on rose branches, bushes and things like that. However, you've got to be very careful because you can push your art from art to kitsch. And if you put dewdrops on the rose, you've lost the battle. I'm sorry to be... This is my opinion only, and if you have another one, brilliant. let's hear it. We're all, we're all individuals and we all share the same space. My opinion is I would prefer to make a composition, and this is very much a composition. This place doesn't exist. You can find it in any garden, but it doesn't exist anywhere. It's just some things that could be doing with a mow and a dead stick, which a bird has found, and some bits and pieces. But the view is a bug's eye view because you're looking up at this grass. If a human was standing here, you'd barely see the bottom, their ankle would barely be there because this grass is not as tall as it looks to a bug or a snail. But the main thing is the thing is all full, but it's full of supporting acts, and then you've got the one star of the show. This started out as a one-page job, and then I loved it so much I just kept going and kept adding things. And this is why I love mixed media, because I can keep piling it on and piling it on. And whereas the page would have been fed up and sort of saying, well, enough coloured pencil, we can't take any more layers. This is great because you could then swap media and go to something else. And you put use your acrylic marker or your neo color or the neo art pastels, oil pastels. You can keep going. And if the page is even sick of oil pastels, which is the granddaddy of them all, you can swap to collage and use that. And you just keep going. So that's what I love about it. Right, more of the same. Magpies on sticks, same things, exactly the same background, but differently put together. And this time I didn't put the dandelions in. This was a run-up, a dress rehearsal for the Magpie in Clover on my Patreon. And there's a whole tutorial about what I do is on Thursdays is niche day, where the main event comes on Friday. So there's 3 videos a week. Main event comes on Friday. On Thursday, I paint things that not everybody might be interested in, like jelly printing and stuff like that. If you are interested in jelly printing, well, that's great. That's your bonus. But there's always something there. So I put flowers and flower workshops, trees, mushrooms, fruit, stuff like that, and jelly printing and other sorts of stuff, collage, all goes in on Thursday. So you get 3 really quite hopefully good videos. It's coming up to berry season, and I went a bit mad in this one, to be fair. I really enjoyed doing these berries. I love doing the leaves. Again, this is a tutorial. These leaves are a tutorial. The flowers are a tutorial. The berries are a tutorial on YouTube, actually. But they're also on my Patreon, and it's all going to come together very, very shortly with berries and some wrens that we did. We'll get to those in a bit. But these leaves, these are great fun to make. And if you can scribble, you can do them. Speaking of, here's my favourite blackbird and some water and so forth. Again, it was an evening art session where I just sit and chill, and lots of grasses and whatever the hell they are. I've no idea. They may not even be real. It doesn't even matter. You can just keep adding. And this was our wren tutorial and putting wrens into poses, which isn't out yet. So this is a spoiler. This is coming. There we go. So yeah, that's a spoiler. Next one, let's take the little one because I don't think there's much in here. No, only one print. Also a spoiler coming. And I'm not going to say where. Watch this space. Hang on. Finding... Where are we here? I thought I had a clip actually. This one was finishing off my sketchbook and playing around with things. Again, playing around with roses and options and what I wanted to do, and just having fun and deciding. And you can see the winner here. That's the winner. This one, that was okay, but this is the winner. And that's where we went in the end. Blackberries again. Just studies. And this is a Thursday tutorial on Patreon, and this is what I mean. What we did was we then went on to put this into, where are we, this. So oops, sorry about that, I just banged the camera. That was the Thursday one, which is more or less a study. But as I've said to my students over and over again, these things and the colours and the background changes when you put it into a scenery. So when you do that, you've got to change things and change the balance of light and dark because it looks slightly different. So that's the Thursday tutorial, the flower workshop, and then we put it into a scenery on the Friday, playing with leaves, because we're getting there, folks. I love autumn so much, and it's going to happen soon. My calendar assures me so. This here is also a Patreon Thursday tutorial, which is growing with a lot of, I try to keep it seasonal. So I'm not doing Christmas things in the middle of our summer. I'm in Germany, so it's summer here at the moment. Well, not that you'd know it to look out the window, but apparently it's summer. But what I do is I let these evolve a little bit across the season, and they'll keep popping up from time to time. And the value of that for artists is that you see all of the different places where you could pop whatever it is in, and you don't have to paint the whole thing every time. So it's not boring. It's just sometimes, like with the bird pictures where I had grasses and dandelions. The next one I had grasses without dandelions. Next one I might put a little bit of a dandelion but no grass. The fact is you're building on a repertoire that you can just slot in where you need to put it. So that means when you look at your picture and say, oh, it needs something. Well, what does it need exactly? What it needs is a dandelion flower or a half-spent dandelion seed head, that sort of thing. Or it needs some nice brambles, just a little bit. I do that quite a lot. When I put a foreground in a picture, I'll put some brambles, blackberries, just a tangle and a couple of leaves, and that works quite well. I think we may see that at some point. Again, playing with colours, deciding, getting ready for the for the next event, and pulling a print with, I can't remember what that was. Yes, I can. That was Neocolor 2 on the jelly plate. Coming, all coming. What have we got in here? All right, that's back to our stuff. Where are we? July. Did I put something? 4th of July, 1st of July. Just the same thing again because I wanted to play with it. So yeah, we've seen that. And I do this sometimes. I'll paint something that was at the end of June. I'll paint something and I'll keep on painting it, sometimes the same way, sometimes in different incantations. This is Beryl. This was the tutorial for my Patreons, because our squirrel, I went outside into my own backyard, how dare I, and I got shouted at, but good. And I tell you what, you do not know you've been told off until you've been told off by a squirrel in a silly little squirrely voice, which is impossible to take seriously. I hadn't heard a squirrel's voice, but she was cross with me because she was having something to eat in the birdhouse, which is absolutely allowed to. And I interrupted her by coming outside. How dare I? And the face was precious. And this is what I saw in the tree. So I put in a very, very, just a plain background. Again, the background, the landscape doesn't always have to be the main event. It's the supporting act. It's the Greek chorus. In this case, it's all about the squirrel. And this is painted with one of my squirrel recipes that I've worked out. Trust me, I'm not a psychopath who eats squirrels. It's just that for shorthand, when I speak to my Patreons, we've got sheep recipes, which is basically which materials. It's like a kit to paint sheep. We've got one for blackbirds and we've got one for squirrels. And I do about 3 or 4 when we do that sort of shoot, so that people can choose their own ingredients for their squirrel. This one, I believe, this is ink and pan pastel color pencil and a fine liner, black fine liner and gel pen. That's it's my favorite, I think. It's certainly the one I'm using the most. Right, foxes. I do have a zine. I was doing one. I'll go and get it in a second. Now that I've seen this, I thought, where the hell's that gone? Yeah, it's on my photography table. Things are het up here. I'm fascinated with rowan berries and bushes, and I've got that little print that's coming. I'm fascinated with foxes, and it's almost fox season. I don't know, it's stupid. Foxes exist the whole year round, obviously. There are foxes around the whole time. But coming into autumn, I think it's because they've taken the trouble to have an orange coat that I associate them with autumn. So yeah, I haven't finished this one, actually, but I probably should. These are fun. I love these foresty ones where you can't see the sky. Rowan berries, like I said. Magpies, love magpies. Just messing around with berries, and again, just like my blackberry, I went mad. But tucking these little, it kind of tells the story for me, is to tuck the little house away in the background here and have all of this lovely pan pastel out of focus background. Then here, this is what we're meant to be looking at, but it's still there because magpies exist alongside people. I don't put people in my pictures. I don't paint them very often at all, actually, but I do show signs of where they've been, like a house, and I'll put washing on a line. I love that. That's my favourite. Just signs of human inhabitation rather than the actual people. I prefer to focus on the natural world. And yeah, blackbirds. This one is a tutorial that ended up here on YouTube about purples and more beryl. And yeah, I think I like the one I went with in the end. I think, yeah, she's better. And that was her face. Absolutely. Completely upset with me. It was hilarious. More wren practice and wrens, which is something that's coming up on my Patreon in the next week. If I look at my calendar, we'll be posing wrens and so forth. This is the tutorial up there with magpies in clover and grass. So you saw the rehearsal. This is the actual tutorial. A nuthatch, because I felt like painting a nuthatch, and I love painting leaves like this where you put washes down. Again, this paper's not buckled or ruined or in any way compromised, and I paint on both sides of it. This was all pretty much hosed down with ink and watercolour, and then let it dry. The secret is let it dry. If you let it dry, it will be fine. And I do it all the time, as you can see. If you watch any of these monthly roundups, you'll see I'm at it constantly. But then you come back in and you put in the leaves where you want them to be and the branches and so forth, and then fill in the dark afterwards. And leave room for our little bird, which is quite cute. This one here is a tutorial as well. I love the feel of these slightly rough blossoms, and these leaves. Fun. An American red-winged blackbird. This happened because I was merrily painting blackbirds and being completely Eurocentric and not caring about anybody else. And it didn't occur to me until one of my students pointed out that the blackbirds are different in America. I thought, okay, right, I'm going to even up the balance, because that's just all kinds of not right. I'm going to even up the balance by painting an American blackbird, and this is the first one I found. I like the fact that it's got the black, red and gold on the wing. That's beautiful to me. The whole bird is lovely, and I love blackbirds, so I'm going to, at some point, spoiler alert, this will be a tutorial for my Patreons in the future, because it's only right and proper that we represent all of our lovely birds. 2 sparrows in some brambles. Again, you don't always have to have a background. Sometimes it can be something like a mouse or a bug that's looking up into the sky, and the sky is the background. Sometimes there's no sky, like in our fox in the woods. Sometimes the sky is all you've got. And that's that one. Right, on to the big ones, and I'll have to be quite careful not to bump the camera, so I'm just going to do it this way. That's better. That one, that's last month. Sorry about this. I thought I'd opened up to the right page. There's only one in this one, and I went all out. Normally I like to do an A5 size, which is roughly half an A4, and this is a full A4, and then I decided to do it right along, which was a devil to photograph, but it does It's nice to paint. It's actually awkward to paint as well because you've got to move it around and I've only got so much space, but it's fun. Here again, love the pan pastel in the background, all muted and all out of focus. And actually, it looks like a large painting because, I mean, it kind of is. But when you think about it, all of the real detail is saturated down here. There's no detail out here at all. We've got the sky. Got some marks on there. They might become seagulls because that's what happened down here. A lot of my birds, if you see birds flying in the sky, you can pretty much assume I've dropped something. So, you know, back here, for 2/3 of this, there's no detail at all. Then we've got a tiny little bit with some cottages here. And then the main event here. And again, here is what I'm talking about with the blossoms and the brambles. And I went for green leaves this time. I like the others a little bit better, but it depends where in the year we are, because the nice, oh gosh, first time, these nice russety leaves with the other colours in them, that's fine for that time of the year. But if it's only summer and the blossoms are just starting, then they're not going to be all yellowy and brown on the leaves. They're going to be green. When they get to this point, they're ready for berries, basically. They're probably just a bit past that. But you know what I mean? You can date your paintings without a date stamp by looking at what you've put in it and where we are in the year. And this has got lots of gouache here in the front. And again, I start with these soft, pale things in the background. So pan pastel, watercolor, gouache, because gouache is more solid in my mind. It's not as transparent as watercolor for starters, and I want the front to be very solid and present because this is where we're starting. So the idea here is if we're walking along a road and we've got this hedgerow full of brambles and there happens to be a song thrush in it, and you can look over the hedgerow right down into this vast area where people live, and the signs of people living, little sort of houses off here in the distance and this one here, then down to the beach. So these are cliffs, but this seems to go much more gently down to a sandy beach. And I don't know if it does or not because it's a composition and it's made up. But it just shows you that what you can do is you then bring all of the elements that you have in your mind. Like we can paint the sky, we can paint some cliffs, we can probably just about make some sort of an ocean. But then we've got to have a house. And these huts, that they occur there, but that's also my favourite hut to paint. So I'll pop one of those in. I can draw on whatever wealth of birds I have in my head. Find a picture of a bird that you want to paint. Put the bird in. Then you think about this. And again, you don't want any more supporting, stars of this show. He's the real star of the show, but then the house is in the center here somewhere. So it's kind of between the two of them. This here, although it's the most solid part of the picture, it's also the most anchoring. It brings you into the scene. So you're now also part of this because you're looking here over a hedge into someone's life, into his life. He happened to be there. Look away, he's probably gone. Make a movement, probably gone. This stays. This is the solid part that's permanent. The waves on the shore, the clouds coming past, and a bird sitting on that particular branch at that particular time is transitionary. You're the only person who's seen it, and you're the only person who's likely to see it. He might fly, I don't know, a couple of meters along and do it again, and someone else will see that, but you won't. So these are the sorts of fleeting moments, so there's permanence, the solidity, there's the ethereal sort of off into the distance, and then there's the motion of the moments that only you see at that time. And that's sort of all that goes together into the composition. And no, I don't think about any of that when I paint it. I just paint it. It's afterwards I realise what I've done sometimes. Sometimes I plan it, but sometimes I don't. And what made me laugh when I was doing an art history degree off in the 1990s, I think that's it. Oh yes, everything else here is for, got the camera. I knew I would. That was August. I did an art history degree when I lived in Australia in the 90s, and it was all about interpreting what the artist was trying to say. And part of me was just screaming to say the artist isn't saying any of this. It doesn't mean any of this. Some of it did, like in very political times, like the Tudors, where you had to be very careful what you said and you had to hide clues in things. Absolutely. I bet the artist was trying to say plenty. But in some of them, they're looking and thinking, you're just trying too hard. The artist just wanted to paint. Trust me. Right, where are we here? Ah, more of this, sorry. More of this. Let me just prop that up a bit in case it's a bit shiny. I don't seal my work with anything unless I'm using pan pastel, as I said. But because of all the layers of waxy pencils and pastels, it can have a bit of a sheen. So here we are again, just the same thing. This is my idea of meditation. So we've got this one with the dandelions and grasses, and that's all that was required, and lots of texture. Love my snail. I don't like them in the real garden, they're a pest, but here he's fine. And I like the fact that the dandelions don't have flowers, because this has moved on a little bit. You can see the light is a little bit more glowy and sort of harvest time, when there's more dust in the atmosphere, you get these lovely orange sunsets. I live in the country and we see a lot of this. Here again, country walks, wrens, brambles, whatever the hell this is, but it works there, I think. I like it, and it's easy to do too. Like if you can scribble, you can do that. So all of these sorts of things are going on at the moment. Here is, right, this is all about this is the setup for the magpie in the clover. If I can, find that without upsetting anything else. I'm almost certain he was in here. Probably isn't. Yes, there he is. So this is the tutorial we started out, because to show how to do the clover leaves and the grasses. A few different sorts of grasses and some background marks. So that was tutorial on Thursday. Then on Friday, we added a magpie. And of course did all this again to show how the magpie fitted in and how any colours were changed, because it's now a scenery with other things in it. And yes, so this sort of thing. And it's great to do it that way, because it's easy to see how it all comes together. If you look at a picture like this, for example, the first thing a beginner will say is, where the hell do you start? I don't know what to do there. It's completely overwhelming. And it can be overwhelming. So that's why I break it down into easier steps. This, I'm not saying a word about that yet. Even though it's part of the July thing. Watch this space is what I'll say about this, and you'll see a bit more on the next page. Squirrel recipes. Did 2 greys and 2 reds because that seemed fair. I didn't do any of the other colour. We have black squirrels here in Germany as well, but in a lot of years I haven't seen one. I think it's been 20 years since I've seen one, actually. But we have grey. We don't have greys, we have reds. So I did both, and different recipes for each one. And people can then pick their favourite. Another fox in, again, more blackberries, but a different scenery this time. The scenery is a lot less muted. It's more sort of everything's part of this picture. There's no background. There's a house that's further away, but it's not pale the way the others are. It's very much sort of present. And the fox and our blackberries again. And this is what I mean. Once you've got these sorts of marks that you can make, you can then put them anywhere. And when a picture needs something, you've got something in your head. You can say, well, actually, I'll do this. That's what that needs. If you want to cover something up, you know how to cover it up, because trust me, covering up works. Make mistakes all the time. But our fox, bit of a farmstead, but there's no real background. There's just different layers of the same picture, but they're all very equal there. Here again, these are jelly prints. My Patreons are going to find out all about what makes these tick early in September, because August is full of tutorials. So I'm not going to say too much, except to say that you can see I've gone round the world a little bit. Got some Scotch thistles, I have some poppies, I have some Australian flowering gum, and I have some red clover, and they're all done on a jelly plate. not transfer method. I don't do the transfer method. We paint onto the here, and then we work back afterwards with our mixed media tools, and then just fiddle with it a bit. But I love the fact that they look like old prints of flowers, and I thought, yeah, that's exactly. And as you can see, it took me a few days. I sometimes snatch what I call art snacks, so I can't sit down for any particular amount of time, but I've got 10 minutes, 5 minutes. You can do a lot in 5 minutes, especially with simple stuff like this. So these are really nice, and they are coming up, so I'm not going to say too much. That was my purples page. Now, the couple, I thought I had something that I was doing. This, I was playing around with, actually I'll leave that till last because it's something a bit interesting. Let's show this one first, and this one is my, oh good grief, where on earth, I know it's in here. Ah, there we go. Yes, more jelly plate. Actually, these are July too. Don't like that one. It isn't the right composition and not the right colours. It's just too much busyness. Maybe it's not finished yet. Maybe it needs something else, and that's a possibility. So I remember I made a mistake in the middle, so I had to fix the background. I used too much dark colour. This one was another one of, again, the same deal as the single wildflowers, but this time a bunch of wildflowers and the beginnings of some fern, which I haven't finished. Loving doing the poppy heads. The dandelion was interesting as well on the jelly plate, and this scribble sort of, let's call it cow parsley, that worked really well as well. And all with that nice background and all these textural marks. You could argue, why don't you just paint? Why on earth would you bother to print when you're only going to get one print? Well, you can get several prints from a jelly plate if you're quick. I don't do that anymore. I tend to print the one and just leave it to dry, so I only get the one print. But what I love above all else is the texture. The texture, I said I wasn't going to talk about these, and I certainly am not. But if we have a look at the texture that we've got on these plates with all these bits and pieces of old paint that I left on there and bits and pieces afterwards, you can't get that so easy painting. You can get it, but it's so difficult. This is easier. So it is a situation where I paint onto the jelly plate, and there are various methods and various materials. This is a surprising material, and like I said, I'm going to keep very tight-lipped about it because it's going to be, I'm going to make a big deal out of it later on. And then you pull the print, and then you can work back into it with other mixed media and refine it. And that's what I've done here. So as you can see, I've got some acrylic marker on there, which I haven't printed that. I could do, but I didn't. I don't want to work backwards. And basically the first thing you put on the jelly print is the thing that's going to print uppermost. So if you want to put highlights like this on the jelly plate and print them the way with my method, you have to put them all down first, and then you work backwards from your highlights to the darker bits. I don't like doing that. It doesn't feel comfortable. This is a better way of doing it, and it's way easier. So yeah, to the best of my knowledge, it's my own technique. I've been developing for about a year and a bit now, 2 years almost. But it works really well. It's easy too. And this is the tutorial that's up on my Patreon, is how to do these lemons. This was one that I played around with. I'll do this sometimes, just a final, like I said, it's a dress rehearsal. Is this actually possible, and can the average person manage it without crying? Because art's supposed to be fun, so let's keep it nice and easy. And it is. It's pretty good, actually. Nice, big, bold shapes. They work really well. And then all this beautiful texture. It's like an Italian fresco, as one of my patrons pointed out, actually. And now that she said that, I can't unsee it. It is like an Italian fresco. And I love that about it. And lemons are the perfect thing to do. I want to continue this with making the background look more like a ceramic tile with fruit on it as well, also printed. So yeah, that's coming as well. And finally, This is something I was doing, just playing around with a piece of paper and a knife. Don't give me a knife. I did this. There was nothing to cut out on here, which was quite frustrating. And I'm not sure how the tree works, but I do like the berries and the leaves. And I have the meanest wild pig in the world. Mind you, can I just say, and anybody living close proximity to wild pig will know that that's what they're like. They are not nice characters. As long as I haven't got my dog with me, I'd rather meet a wolf in the forest than a wild pig, especially in breeding season. So blackberries again. Once you can do them, you can put them anywhere. I've got some collaged rocks here, tucked my little cottage into the background. The rest is lots of textural marks. A tree of some sort, of course, happens in most of my work. Some sort of, this could be anything, type of weed down here. And the 3 stars of the show this time are the fox and Beryl the Peril and my wild pig. None of them very interested in each other, which I'm happy to say. I'd hate that pig to be putting that death ray glance on the other 2. Mind you, she'd be up the tree in an instant telling him off, and that's as far as he would go. But yeah, it's fun. And I'm going to develop this into some sort of tutorial in the future. I don't know whether to do it. I don't like the way when this folds, you see the background. I would have to come along and turn that into something as well. But it's still a bit of fun. And it just shows that it doesn't matter whether you make something to frame, do something in your sketchbook, or just play around on a piece of paper. This is a piece of Canson 180 GSM paper. And it's also taken a lot of a beating from wet media, because was the first lot. These are 2 are ink. I want to say that one's gouache or watercolor, actually. Again, I play around different sometimes just to see if there's an easier way, because then I can pass that on. These leaves, I don't think I'll change the way I do those in a hurry, because I like them. And the berries, I did them slightly differently this time. Same result. And yeah, I sort of think, I'm not sure where I was going with the tail. It appears that the tail has become part of the brambles. So perhaps I was saying something about the temperament of the average wild pig. It's got claws and thorns on it. Not too sort of out of the realms of possibility. But there's watercolor in here as well, and like I said, gouache and ink, and I made all the papers for my rocks. These are all collaged rocks. Make those with super granulating watercolors, because super granulating watercolors need space to move around. They need water to swim in, and if you make a little pebble like this, you're not going to get anywhere with them. They just won't perform. However, if you get a big piece of paper, well, when I say big, I mean like that, so about A5 or A6, and then you use your watercolor just to color the paper, and then you cut the rocks out from that. Let me just see if I can grab some. I'm sure that was quite easy to understand, but I shall make it easier still by, oh, this is just a piece of white paper. This is what I mean. So I just get it and make marks on it with my watercolor, let it granulate, let it dry, and then cut out what you want. And that's where I got these from. And they're really quite easy, but you will not get those effects on these tiny pieces. It's also fiddly. It's much easier to colour the paper and then cut from it when you're doing collage. So yeah, that's it for July. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope that wasn't too overwhelming and too much chatter. It's basically, yeah, I love my work and I hope it shows. Like I said, don't forget to leave a like and a subscribe and a comment if you have the time. And if you want to see, there's a lot in here that are actually on the Patreon already. The tutorials are there right now. And a lot more coming, as you can see. So this is sort of what we do, and this is how I do my mixed media work. So I would love to have your company. Right, till next time then. And my patrons are seeing this first on the Wednesday. I shall see you all tomorrow with something exciting. Bye for now. Bye.